Hey, so I'm JR.
I'm Matt.
Oh, I'm going to press this right now,
We're not
just
recording.
in case.
Are we recording?
We are recording now.
Excellent.
And so, shall we tell Facebook that we're actually live now?
Yes.
Okay, let's quickly tell Facebook. So if you are already watching, because I don't know how this works, can you come onto this and go back and watch it from the start?
Yeah, it says
Oh,
so you
can
can
you?
watch our old episode.
Yes,
really
but what
want
I
to.
mean is while it's live, can you...
Can you watch from the start?
I don't know. But if you can do that, people might go back and watch this bit, which might not be very exciting.
Yeah, you'll be missing gold if you don't.
The absolute gold. So, but anyway, that's me. I've told Facebook, but I didn't post the link. So if anybody is watching this and can't find us, go back and find the link, which was just a little bit further down my timeline. So I expect I'll get a few pings in a minute saying you're live where? Oh, there comes the first one. Okay, so I know Matt Barber shared my post.
Yeah,
guys.
that was me.
Okay, so what we are going to do is we were already planning to get together this evening and just record a regular Strangers in Space episode. And Lee was supposed to be here, but he's not turned up because that's Lee. So then the trailer came out today, and I knew the trailer was coming out today, so I don't know why I didn't already think of this in advance. But then it suddenly struck me, as soon as the trailer's come out today, we should record an Easter egg where we give our thoughts on the trailer. And then it struck me, well, we were talking about it on Facebook, and I said, well, let's do it as a YouTube live thing. So here we are. So what we're going to do is record the trailer bit first, because I'm sure people will want to hear us talking about the trailer and talking about rumours and talking about Series 12 before we record the bit that probably fewer people want to watch us doing on YouTube. So we're doing this podcast backwards.
I'm just sharing the actual link.
Oh, okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'll tell. I don't know if anybody's watching yet.
I doubt it.
One person. So I will tell. Yeah. You've shared the actual link.
I think so.
So I will share your post. And then there, and then we can get started. So maybe people will join us later. Oh, and I suppose, actually, because this is what you like to do, is look at the corner of the screen where people might post things. So if anybody wants to ask a question about Series 12 or about the trailer or about whatever, type it into the YouTube live comment stream thingy and it'll come up, and Matt will lean forward with a quizzical look on his face, very much like he is doing now.
Because I'm short-sighted, so I'm the worst.
I also am short-sighted. I don't know if you've noticed this.
We need opera glasses.
Opulent glasses.
Opera glasses, or have it come to my iPhone, my iWatch.
Yeah. Or I suppose I could just take a look every now and again. Right. Let's do the thing then.
Okay.
So this
should we cover the camera up?
Cover the
camera. I see. Okay.
Oh, not that thing. No.
Okay.
Right. So here we are, and the Series 12 trailer has come out today, and we're going to talk about our thoughts, I suppose, on the trailer, and some thoughts on Series 12, and some rumours that have been flying around, and some news reports that have actually come out, press releases, because they've been press releasing the names of people who are going to be in Series 12 this week, which is all very different from last time around. But
are we going to do a formal introduction?
No, because the formal introduction will be at the start of the podcast, which we're recording later.
Oh, okay. This is an Easter egg, not an episode.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Although if it turns out that we talk for so long that this turns into the episode instead of the Easter egg,
then we'll record an introduction.
No, we'll just go without the cold open, and it'll be like Series 11 of Doctor Who, where you got the titles and music and no cold open.
Okay, that sounds fine.
So I'm JR.
I'm Matt.
Okay, we've done that bit, so people know who we are. Nobody said anything yet, have they?
Miles Northcott. I know the word scotched.
And that's from last time, isn't it?
Okay.
Shall I tell you, before we talk about whether we like the trailer and how different the trailer is from what they were doing last year and all this
Okay.
kind of stuff, there is something in that trailer that I think is absolutely vital and shows a big clue, the biggest clue, just one shot as to how different things are going to be this year from last year.
Okay.
And I don't necessarily think things are going to be that different from last year, but I think this is one big way in which things are going to be different. And that is the shot of the street scene, which looks like probably somewhere in the United States, first half of the 20th century. And the Doctor and Yaz are running. And Yaz is in period clothes. And there was no period clothes last year. They weren't doing dress up last year. And we know they're also doing tuxedos.
Yeah.
So we're getting dress up this year.
Yeah.
But they're running down the street, and then suddenly the scorpion monster comes crashing into the market stand behind them.
Okay.
Right, last year we did not have monsters.
Right.
Old school Doctor Who monster runarounds in the period pieces.
Yeah.
So that already is a big signpost saying we're doing things differently this year. So the period things this year are not going to be, here's a really interesting character from history and let's focus exclusively on that.
Yeah.
And just have a time traveler or something that we can wrap a story around. Because even the Witchfinders, the monsters in that were fairly low key compared to a giant scorpion running around the streets of 1930s New York or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think the spiders is probably the closest, but they were framed as actual spiders.
Well, and actually they were in the modern day as well. What I'm talking about is this is period.
Yes.
And they're doing it. And Goran Visnich presumably is in that episode.
Miles Northcott, Chibnall's alive. Miles Northcott, Pip got scotched.
I'd ignore Miles if I were you.
Okay. He's drunk.
For anybody who's listening on podcast, we are doing this live on YouTube, which is why we are reacting to things going off on the screen in front of us.
Goran Visnich. So part of what I was doing when I was watching the trailer was to try and work out which fragments were from which, because normally trailers at this stage show maybe 3 or 4 episodes.
Let's get into that in just a second.
Okay.
Because I think because I'm trying to relate Goran Visnich to the episode that I'm already talking about.
So I thought the episode, so the Scorpion thing I saw as a sort of turn of the century.
Probably,
thing.
yeah. It's hard
and
to say.
There's the rumour that Goran Visnich is Tesla. And he looks very much like Tesla. And he's in the right sort of period outfit to be Tesla.
Who's Tesla?
He invented electricity, basically. He was played by David Bowie in The Prestige.
Right, that would make sense.
And there's a recent film about Tesla and Edison. But
is
also
Tesla American?
Serbian American, which is, I think, where the rumour started with Goran Visnich.
The sign on the wall behind them outside there's a coffee shop and it says coffee and stuff on one side.
Yeah.
Restaurant,
Yeah.
coffee, $2, whatever it says.
Oh, it's $2. Okay, so America.
Yeah, and then no, I'm not sure it says America, but then at the other side it says whiskey and underneath town, and then if you look very carefully in between, it says in this, and there's something above whiskey that you can't see.
Okay.
So it might say the only place to get whiskey in this town or something.
Okay.
It looks like it says whiskey town.
Right.
It doesn't.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, that's obviously not important, except as the clue to where and when it's set.
It suggests America.
So, and the spelling of whiskey is, I believe, the American spelling as opposed to the British.
Okay.
Although the trailer's just come out today, and my God, I haven't gone through it with a fine tooth comb, so I forget now. But I think it looks like it's set in.
Right.
Well, it's impossible to say just from that one shot exactly when, but it definitely looked like.
And you said it was the Doctor and Yaz running. I thought it was Goran Visnich was in that
could have been.
clip. I thought I saw a moustache flashing past.
Oh no, maybe it is. But there's a shot of him in that trailer.
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely in the trailer.
Did he have a moustache?
He definitely had a moustache because I've been trying to work out who he could be playing. He still has an accent, so it can't be. People were talking about JFK, which obviously he isn't.
The reason why people are talking about JFK might be because there was a press release put out today as well, which obviously you've not seen then. And the press release announces Robert Glenister from Caves of Androzani and Goran Visnich.
Yeah.
And so they do these are the two stars.
Yeah.
And then there's a paragraph explaining who one is, a paragraph explaining who the other is, and then there's a paragraph with quotes from each of them.
And Visnich said he's playing somebody he admires greatly or something.
Oh, you did see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But
So if he's saying somebody he admires greatly, then it would have to be somebody who's been a positive influence and somebody presumably who's likely to have done something notable.
yeah.
So Tesla's
Tesla's just about a possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, he's obviously not John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy.
No.
But
well, then that makeup, he's patently not JFK.
and it wasn't so I didn't think of Tesla. Somebody else thought of Tesla purely because Goran Visnich is Croatian, I think. So he's from that part of the world. But I looked up a photograph of Tesla.
And he looks nothing like it.
And he looks very much like Goran Visnich.
Oh, well, there you go.
Dark hair, moustache. And it's also that kind of, it looked like sort of 1880s, 1890s dress.
Well, that makes sense. And if that's true, that's also another sign that they're doing things rather differently.
Yeah. And
because last year.
It's very right for a Doctor Who story as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He's an enigmatic historical character.
Well, then, okay. All right, let's have a quick, did you enjoy the trailer?
Yeah, I think I did. I think I agree with people that said it looked like it was going in a different direction. I couldn't put my finger on it, and I'm not sure I entirely trust it because trailers are naturally going to show the action scenes, the exciting bits. But the fact that there are exciting bits
shows a new direction
apart from the last series.
I tell you what, I did think some of the scenes in that trailer, a lot of the scenes in that trailer did make me think, okay, it's going to be like last year, but with action bits. Okay. So it's not going to be that different. That was the impression I got. But you can't say.
There are so even the few moments of humour in the trailer, I could see how it would be funny. I mean, it doesn't. The jokes don't have a context, but it felt like a different sort of humour.
Yeah, maybe,
to the original.
Yeah. Although there was a fair bit of humour in Series 11.
Yeah,
I think people forget that a bit.
Yeah, it just didn't land for me very well.
Some of it did in the first episode. I think it kind of ran out of steam a bit.
I also, what else did I think? Yeah, so the action scenes looked like they were well made, and obviously the returning monsters. I'm a little bit underwhelmed by so it looks like the Rachnos.
Yeah. Well, not the Rachnos that we already met, but a Rachnos.
And the Jadoon.
We know the Jadoon already.
Those two, I'm not, desperate to see them back on screen again, but sometimes that can make the better return.
Potentially, they could be in the same episode. The Jadoon could be looking for the Rachnos.
Okay.
I mean, the Jadoon could be looking for anything in any of the episodes. So
yeah.
That's like a 1 in 10 chance, really.
Yeah.
That Jadoon could be Anjali Mahindra. Is that what she's called from the Sarah Jane Adventures?
Okay.
Because she's in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was announced ages ago, or leaked ages ago.
She'll be playing a Jadoon?
No, not a Jadoon.
Oh.
The Rachnos.
Oh, okay, the Rachnos. Sorry. Okay. I was going to say...
Did I say Jadoon?
Yeah. If we get somebody coming back, it would be a little bit underwhelming. We have a question from Dylan Reese.
Yes, I was going to finish our train of thought before we went to the question, but go on then.
Do you think Chibnall is responding to criticism like Moffat did? Moffat seemed to do a lot of course correction as he went.
I don't think Chibnall is, because this series went into production pretty much as the last series finished broadcasting, which means pretty much all 10 of these scripts would at least have been at first draft stage, if not completed, by the time Series 10, the criticisms really started coming in.
But
there's a certain amount of course correction you can do post-fact, but I think this was always the plan. I said it, that I thought Series 11 was designed to get people who don't like Doctor Who watching, on the assumption that people who do like Doctor Who would. And I think it's impossible to contextualize Series 11 until you've seen Series 12. But I always thought that Series 11 would be different, and then Series 12 would come more back towards what people expect Doctor Who to be like than Series 11 was. And it's just a case of seeing how far back they come. So I think series 12 will be the midpoint between series 11 and Russell T Davies or Stephen Moffat.
And one of your issues with the last series was the direction. So that is a course correction they can make. If you're you're right with that, and
but I don't think they
changed the style of the direction to emphasize the action, which would which could be a direction. I mean, on the script, it could just say such and such comes bashing through the wall, and if they actually direct it with a sort of kinetic kind of
which wasn't happening
last year, so that's a possibility. They have redesigned the TARDIS, or they tweaked the TARDIS interior slightly. They made it slightly wider,
and I didn't really take a lot of notice. I was trying to spot people and things.
Right.
I wasn't trying to spot things that might say, "Oh, that's a Ragnos, that's a Jadoon." I was trying to spot things like I was talking about with the Prohibition or whatever it was era setting. No, it's pre-Prohibition, but you know what I mean.
If they're advertising whiskey,
So the first thought that came into my head was this looks vaguely Prohibition. So what are the clues as to whether it's pre or post or during?
Right.
And then the sign that said whiskey said to me, well, it's either pre or post. And judging by the costume, it's probably pre.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to work out. But Prohibition was the word that came into my head. Hence me repeating it now. That's the kind of thing I was looking out for, to see if there were clues as to actual changes in the direction of the program, rather than what specifically was going to be in it. I think, and I really enjoyed that trailer. I thought it was great, and I thought the music that they used for it really worked. I think a lot of that trailer was probably from series 1. You've seen the Chris Chibnall quote about series 1, episode 1 rather.
Okay.
You've seen the Chris Chibnall quote about how it's going to be the biggest Doctor Who episode ever, unquote, or whatever it was precisely he said.
Yeah.
And people were looking at that and saying, oh, that means something big and dramatic must happen. And then all these rumours have sprung up that we'll get into. But my thought when he said it's the biggest Doctor Who episode ever was there's going to be some globe hopping. We're going to be in 4 different countries.
Right.
I'd already heard rumours going around that episode 1 was going to be a bit of a spy thing.
Okay.
Hence, Stephen Fry looks like he might potentially be the Prime Minister or a Home Secretary, something like that.
Yeah.
Presumably in a bit of a spooks feel, where the Home Secretary's called the Doctor in to look into something that's going on or whatever.
Are they wearing tuxedos when they talk to Stephen Fry?
I can't remember, but potentially that's in that episode.
And they land in a vineyard when they're wearing tuxedos. So I'm going by the tuxedos to try and connect the things together. So the vineyard is tuxedo territory.
So let's say that's France or somewhere on the Mediterranean.
Then Paris was tuxedo territory. So
no, we'll get back to Paris.
Okay. So it might be an unrelated vineyard. It was definitely France they landed in.
Okay, yeah.
And I had a sort of a reign of terror vibe from it.
Yes, but I'll go into that in a moment.
Okay.
But then there's cornfields in America, perhaps, where they're getting shot at.
Okay.
And all various things like this. I think the bigness of the first episode is going to be the sort of globe-trotting quotient, and I think that's what he was talking about.
Right.
So I think it's going to be James Bond, the first episode.
Okay.
So a bit in one country, a bit in another country, while they try and track something down. A story came out, and apologies to anybody who's watching or listening who hasn't realised this so far, but we are going into spoiler hell territory.
What
during the course of this. If you don't know, you're about to find out.
Before you say that, shall I read out what Miles Northcott has just said?
Yeah, but Dylan Reese has got a second one.
What do you think of the lineup of directors? Their CV don't have huge dramas on them. Are they going for new, exciting talent or cheaper options?
Well, let's talk about the directors that Stephen Moffat used, because Russell T Davies basically had a repertory company of directors, whereas Stephen Moffat, pretty much all the way through, was catching directors who were on their way up. And a lot of those directors did just a couple of episodes, or maybe 4 episodes, and then went on and did Farron Blackburn, who did the Widow and the Wardrobe one, the Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe. Next thing he did after that was a movie with Nicole Kidman.
Okay.
So that's what was happening with the directors under Stephen Moffat. They were catching directors on the way up before they were doing movies and such. Douglas McKinnon just did not Good Omens, the other one. Or is it Good Omens?
He did Good Omens.
Good Omens, yeah. I think Chris Chibnall's doing the same thing as Stephen Moffat did, catching directors on their way up.
Okay.
So he had people like Mark Tonderai, actually, who was quite well known already,
Yeah.
but perhaps not so well known that you can catch him for a TV series like Doctor Who, just as Stephen Moffat had Ben Wheatley.
Yeah.
But also these other directors, I think, are on their way up. And
Well, Stephen Moffat did both. So he had
Hmm.
directors on the way up and film directors that could
well,
sort of...
two, but they were
come
both
down.
film directors whose careers had not quite ignited, shall we say.
Okay.
So Ben Wheatley's fairly well known on the cult circuit at the time
Yeah.
he does Doctor Who.
Okay.
But Doctor Who is the thing that puts his name in the Radio Times and in the national newspapers.
Right.
And Rachel Talalay, obviously very talented,
Yeah.
but her directing career, the things that she's best known for is A Huge Bomb
Yeah.
as a director, which is, no reflection on her
No.
talent, but
Yeah.
it was barbed wire, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that wasn't a very well regarded thing. So actually, Doctor Who is a case of catching somebody who's probably too good for the series, but whose career doesn't reflect how good they are, and getting them in. And
Yeah.
again, I think it's Doctor Who that made Rachel Talalay a name,
Yeah.
whereas before she'd probably be known by a few people, but not so many. I think Chibnall's doing pretty much the same thing. Mark Tonderai,
Right.
I reckon that's the kind of name that a few people in the know would be bandying around, but a lot more people know that name now than they did before.
Okay.
So there's a bit of both there. Miles Northcott says, that's a hard one to answer until we see the new series, but based solely on the trailer, it certainly seems possible. And I'm guessing he's talking about whether it's going to be more actiony.
Yeah.
Of course,
We've got to delay. Of course, it may just be a change, and may just be change if there is change, based on how the
based on how he felt last series
yes.
panned out. But I would have thought that he would have been aware of the response to Series 11. I don't know, because I don't think Chris Chibnall does social media. I think, actually, if Chris Chibnall knows anything about the response to Series 11, it'll be the BBC watching social media and perhaps passing on notes.
But also, presumably he's seen the last series, so he's probably
he's
probably aware of bits that he might not be happy with.
It's been said that Chris Chibnall was a lot more hands off in terms of the production than Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat were. I don't know if that's true. If that's true, and I think I said it once or twice during the course of us reviewing Series 11 that I thought the production didn't necessarily marry up to the scripts. So presumably a lot of the production was going on and Chris Chibnall would have been made aware of what was going on, but perhaps wasn't stepping in to change things.
Yeah.
And maybe he just said, okay, you get on and make Series 11 as you see fit. I mean, if any of this is true, you get on and make Series 11 as you see fit. And then maybe at the end of Series 11, going into Series 12, he said, right, here are my notes. Make it more visceral.
Yeah.
Whatever. Give the acting more punch. Let's write more in for the characters, because maybe he thought he'd put enough in for the characters last time, but actually in the production, the directors and the actors were playing it down, and so perhaps it didn't come off the way he meant.
Yeah.
There's a shot in the trailer of Yas crying. And already I've seen somebody said, oh, thank God they've given Yas something to do because of this single shot of her crying.
Sad Yas, they said.
Yeah. But do you know what I mean then? So
I mean,
it looks like there's a certain amount of change.
The trailer might be, giving a false sense, but everything Chibnall said in the interview
indicates
references things that I felt about his first series. The fact that he's the slight changes of direction are things that I'd be quite happy with.
Well, he seems to be picking out.
He says he's going to change. He's going to tweak the historicals, and that's an interesting one. So I don't know whether
I've already talked about a tweak on the historicals.
Whether it's going to be a middle ground between Witchfinders and Rosa. So because the guest cast. So I'm looking at Goran Visnich, and I'm thinking he's in the historical, but he's not.
He's not
the little bit of performance we saw was heightened, so it's not it's that sort of humour. You wouldn't get that from Rosa.
He's not a character.
It's not Alan Cumming, but it is sort of a balance.
But it's also, if he is playing Tesla, he's not a character around whom there is a political concern.
No,
and yet all three of the political past ones, the period ones from series 11, including the witch hunters.
Yeah.
Witch finders. Because Alan Cumming, of course, was responsible for the witch hunts, and of course that becomes a feminist issue in the episode to a certain degree. So all three of those episodes dealt with issues, political issues. Whereas if he's playing Tesla, that doesn't seem to be hinging on a political issue.
No.
So that's a tweak.
Yeah.
I was going to go on and say about Paris.
Okay, go on.
Okay, so there was, I think this comes from the Mirror, maybe it comes from the Radio Times, and I don't think it's confirmed. I don't think this was said in the actual interview with Chris Chibnall, or maybe I'm wrong, but someone somewhere has said that the first and second episode are a two-parter.
Okay.
But the hot thought is that the second episode is the one set in Paris in 1943 with this spy.
Right.
Who's so this is Nazi-occupied Paris. Okay. She plays a spy for the Allies. Also, she's Indian, or she's somewhere from the subcontinent.
Right. So sort of Mata Hari.
Yeah, sort of a Mata Hari type character. Okay. So that looks like it's going to be PC influenced episode.
Okay.
But if that's attached to episode 1 as a two-parter, well, there's this quote from Graham, and he says, "What have you brought here, Doctor?" I'm wondering if it works as a two-parter in effect of there's the same baddie in both. Okay. So there's a baddie in the first episode that they apparently defeat. Then they go to the second episode, they land in Paris, they're having a nice time, and the same baddie, whatever it is, turns up again. And so you have to go through the same thing again.
They wouldn't be having a nice time.
Well, you know what I mean.
Because the one shot in the trailer we saw set in definitely 1940s Paris is the Doctor realizing that she's in Nazi-occupied Paris. And that
says, "Oh no," or something.
Yeah. So that raises the question of which, because there's various sort of tonal directions you can go with Nazi-occupied Paris. You can go the Stephen Moffat route of punching Hitler and putting him in the cupboard, which is a perfectly valid direction to go with Nazis. Or you can go deathly serious, or you can take a middle ground, which I feel that's what this last series. I think they'd take the deathly serious approach.
I think in taking the
deathly, it's not going to be an Anne Frank episode.
Yeah. I think in taking the deathly serious approach last time, they've opened the door for themselves to do the middle ground this time.
Yeah.
And certainly, if the other period one in this series that we know about, what we've seen some of in the trailer, has got giant scorpions running around in turn of the century America, then it looks like the period ones this time will be taking that middle ground. I suppose we'll have to wait and see for confirmation of that. But that does look like it's, rather than being a two-parter, going to be two connected episodes.
Okay.
Which leads me to wonder whether the rest of the series might be slightly connected as well, because there is that quote from the Doctor, "Something's coming for me."
Right.
And I loved that quote. I thought that was a really nice line.
Yeah.
It could be just a throwaway line from a single episode. This week's threat is coming for me until we defeat it. But they seem to be placed in the trailer to suggest that's got something to do with an arc for the series.
Yeah, I thought that.
Yeah, so if it is suggesting that, and that is true, something coming for me is slightly different from what we've had in terms of arcs before. In terms of arcs under Russell T Davies, it was always hints at something, and then the something gets explained at the end of the series. So you get hints at Bad Wolf, hints at Torchwood, hints at Saxon, and then an explanation at the end of the series. Under Stephen Moffat, he would come up with a mystery that gets solved at the end of the series, like Clara throwing herself back through the timelines. But then, just like the Bad Wolf thing, the mystery kind of gets shuffled backwards through the series, so that it's a bit like he's putting a jigsaw puzzle together, but it's always the Doctor on the trail of the mystery, rather than the mystery following the Doctor and catching the Doctor up, as it were. In a sort of mechanical sense, I mean. For this one, something's coming for me. That suggests that the arc throughout the series ought to be slightly more connected, because it
Yeah.
looks like the Doctor's not necessarily on the run from something, but certainly on the move, and with the notion that there's something behind her that she either has to turn and face or keep one step
So-
ahead of.
It's Dalek's master plan, basically. But stretched.
Well, I was thinking more the chase,
Okay.
but yeah.
I mean, Dalek's master plan has the Egypt, effectively the Egypt 3-4 parter in the middle.
Well,
Which-
Chase has that, except instead of
Uh,
3 or 4 parters, they're half parters.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you've got Empire State Building, Mary Celeste, the Frankenstein exhibition thing,
Mhm.
about 3 different planets.
Yes.
So yeah, but that's the idea that I've got from that one line.
No, I agree.
Could
I
be
thought,
totally wrong, but
I think that the portent of that line suggests something, and the positioning in the trailer as well suggests that there's something important about that line. And we have 2 comments. So Dylan Reese, please let there be a decent arc, which is what we're talking about. Catch up, Dylan. Miles Northcott, I seem to remember Simon scoring something a good solid 8.
I think Miles Northcott's just here to take the mick.
Okay.
Okay, rumour territory.
Scoring? Yeah. Yes.
Okay, no, actually, let's wait a second before we go into rumour territory. But when we go into rumour territory, I'll be coming back to this subject of the arc. There's a bunch of stuff we've got here to write.
Lenny Henry?
Lenny Henry, I think he's going to be in episode 1.
Okay.
I think he's going to be part of the
The
Globe.
very brief shot we saw looked really good.
Mm.
And I've seen a few comments online talking about him being a comedian, or sort of a failed, washed out comedian. But
He
stopped
stopped 3.
he stopped being a comedian. He started
Yeah.
being a really good actor.
Yeah,
He's been
yeah.
on stage and
Okay, let's episode 1. Since we have been talking about episode 1, here's another one.
Okay.
There's a rumor around that Kate Stewart's back for it.
I saw that. Yeah.
Now, who knows whether that's true, and she's not been announced yet. They seem to be doing a week of announcements or something, where
Okay.
they're making casting announcements nearly every day, or it seems to have
Right.
been going that way. So maybe there will be a casting announcement about that, and people are right. If they're right, I wonder if the storyline if Stephen Fry is playing a senior politician, whether it's a Home Secretary or the Prime Minister or somebody in charge of the Secret Service or whatever, some senior politician, maybe there'll be a storyline in there where the disbanded unit from Resolution is brought back together because of some threat to Earth.
Okay.
But we didn't see any sign of Kate Stewart in the trailer, so
Yeah.
who knows? It could be that that's...
A later episode, contemporary. I wouldn't be surprised if Chibnall didn't bring her back. Chibnall's
Well,
Chibnall's not.
Chibnall brought her
not
into the
anti-unit.
series. Well, he brought her into the
Okay,
series in
yeah,
the first place
yeah.
in The Power of 3.
Yes.
So
yeah.
she's kind of his character, even though the character was sort of nicked from Downtime.
Mm.
But I think really it's just the name and the family relationship that was nicked from Downtime.
Okay.
I think really it's a new character just with an old name.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it would make sense for him to bring her back. And that also, in a way, would make sense of the unit reference in Resolution, because they didn't need to reference unit in Resolution. They didn't reference unit in Arachnids in the UK or The Woman Who Fell to Earth.
Yeah.
Those are both contemporary set episodes, so they could very easily have said, oh, we're a unit when you need them in those, but they didn't.
Yeah.
But then they chose to reference unit in the very episode that's last before this series,
Yes.
which potentially is a hint. Okay, you've not got unit now, but we're mentioning it now because.
Yeah.
So potentially that could be that.
Go on.
Okay, Miles is back. Is he still? Miles says, I don't think we need an arc per se, but something connecting some of the episodes would be nice.
Yeah.
I think there's a better chance of an arc this season since we know we're getting, fingers and ears Lee, some returning elements from the show's past. Series 11 was set up to be more standalone. And Dylan Reese says, the BBC claimed Chibnall created Kate and the two Kates are not related. Yeah, I don't think, but I think it's more than coincidence that she's got that name. Okay, Miles Northcott's back and says,
it's
Kate came from one of the spin-off straight-to-video dramas, didn't she?
It's Miles versus Dylan.
Yes, Miles, it's called Downtime. I said it about 2 minutes ago.
But I could see why they just ignore the. I mean, it's just a nod, calling her Kate.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any difference. What was I in the middle of saying when I was interrupted there?
Contemporary Kate. We're talking about rumours, casting.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you one other thing as well. And I saw somebody refer to this as a flock of bats.
Oh,
the
yeah,
two
that looks
flock
like it.
things.
Yeah.
Did you look closely enough to see what they were?
No, I thought they were a flock of bats.
No, I paused it, freeze framed it.
Are they a lot of Clara killing ravens?
They are crows of some kind.
Okay.
I would definitely have said they're crows of some kind.
Right.
And that to me, obviously, that's a hint at the Omen 2, perhaps. Maybe not a deliberate one, but
yeah.
I'd have suggested that anybody doing that must be aware of the Omen 2.
Right.
But more so, I just think that that's such a fantastically evocative idea, this huge swarm of some kind of crow.
Flock.
Yeah, way more than if it was bats or aliens or something.
Yeah.
Because it's crows, it just says to me, well, what's going on? Who's controlling that?
Okay.
And how does that fit into a storyline?
Yeah.
And that excites me far more than it would be if it was bats or aliens.
Yeah, and also it's again a little bit of sort of, and I know it's a trailer, so they take the kinetic bits and highlight them, but I like the look of the kinetic bits.
Yeah.
It felt like more like he was getting the best bits out of Stephen Moffat, and kind of repairing some of the things that happened last year, or enhancing some of the things that happened last year.
And on the subject of the crows, and I think it's a fool's errand to point at things in the trailer and say, well, that's from episode X, that's from episode Y, and that's from episode Z. But I'd like to see the crows in the first episode.
So how many episodes do you think we saw? I got the impression there were sort of 4 distinct ones.
I think
you're thinking more
4.
2 or 3.
No, I think we saw a
Cyberman.
10 of Century America.
Yeah.
Saw the Cyberman from presumably a Mary Shelley episode, if that rumour's true.
Yeah.
We saw from episode 2 and we definitely saw from at least 4 or 5 episodes.
So it's the 2 Parises, Turn of the Century America, and the Cyberman. Yeah. Okay.
I think a lot of the stuff we saw in there was from Globetrotting episode 1.
Okay.
I couldn't swear to that, but that was the impression I got.
Okay,
let's go down into rumours. Okay, here's one that is very likely true.
Right.
We can't say it for certain. Oh, and the actor's name's gone right out of my head. From An Adventure in Time and Space.
David Bradley?
No, playing the Master.
Oh.
The guy who plays Wallace Hussein in An Adventure in Time and Space.
Oh.
Name's gone right out of my head.
Okay.
Anyway, anybody listening to this will know exactly who I'm talking about. So the rumor is that he's playing the Master. But I tell you what I saw today, and I assumed when I read this that it was just somebody making a joke, and it didn't strike me that this might actually be a rumor. Somebody said, "Oh, I've heard that," ... and then said something, and I just looked at it and thought, "Oh, that's silly."
I heard Lenny Henry playing the Master as a rumor, but you go on.
Okay, maybe Lenny Henry's playing him at the start, and
okay.
It's on the tip of my tongue and I can't get it. Might be playing him by the end of the series. Who knows?
This is where viewers might actually come in helpful.
Yes.
No.
Okay, maybe it'll pop up in a second. Oh God. Somebody had written on some, I think it was on Facebook, maybe it was on Gallifrey Bay, somewhere, and I just saw it as a throwaway comment, didn't take any notice of it, and then about half an hour later it came into my head and it blossomed into one of the most beautiful ideas.
Okay.
And of course it is going to have been a joke, isn't it? Somebody said, the Master's back, having regenerated into a baby.
Okay.
And when I first read that, I thought, well, that's stupid. They're not going to have a baby Master throughout the series. But then I thought, you see Missy absolutely stone cold dead at the end of the is it called the Doctor Falls? That last episode of
something like that.
What if there's just enough regeneration power left?
Dylan Reese says,
No,
Sacha Dhawan.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Dylan.
What if there's just enough regeneration energy?
Like having secretaries.
What if there's just enough regeneration energy left for her to regenerate not into an adult, but into an infant?
Okay.
And so at some point in episode 1, we see an infant and the Doctor notes it. And on screen, we as an audience note it. And then nothing more is said about it. We don't see it again for like 6 episodes.
All right.
And we forget all about it.
Yes.
And then later on, we get a younger Master, like Sacha Dhawan.
Okay, so he'll grow up.
He'll
It's not
grow
going to
up.
be like Boss Baby.
He won't
you
be a
won't get to
baby
like
throughout the series, but he will be a master that is now reformed from infancy.
Okay.
So we can get an entirely new take on that character, presumably with the characteristics of old,
Right.
but a sort of newborn, newly developed master, so that they can play with the idea as much as they like.
Okay. A bit like Moffat did with Davros.
Yeah.
Hints of that.
Mm.
Okay.
But also a bit like Moffat did with River Song, particularly in Let's Kill Hitler, where she was at her youngest.
Okay. Yeah.
Or in, I guess, in
Or The Girl Who Waited. Not The Girl Who Waited.
the second part of The Impossible Astronaut, where we see her as a young girl.
Or with Amy as well. So there's a big Moffat thing about introducing younger versions.
Well, this is probably why I'm thinking along these lines, because I'm a Moffat fan. But can you imagine if we had an adolescent master?
Dylan Reese says the Jacoby Master said he was found as a baby in the Silver Desolation.
But he was a human at the time, and he didn't become the master until he was a fully grown adult.
And that might be in Embedded Memories as well.
Possibly. But what I'm saying is, if you get the master growing up to be the master from a baby, then if you get an adolescent master in that phase, then you're getting a master who's just learning to be the evil genius that the master goes on to become. And wouldn't it be fascinating to find a way of telling the story of the master as an adolescent learning to be evil genius without having to go back to Gallifrey pre an unearthly child and do it as an origin story?
Okay.
So this becomes a new origin story for the master.
Okay.
Having said all of this, I expect this really was just a throwaway joke, but blimey, what a beautiful idea blossomed in my head thinking about it.
Apparently Big Finish see that through story through them War Master box set, which I haven't listened to. So the Derek Jacobi story has been expanded by Big Finish,
but not on television.
But then everything's been expanded by Big Finish to their voice.
I think doing it on television, doing an adolescent master, developing into the evil genius.
Okay,
I think that's an amazing idea.
Okay.
Okay, other things. So, should we do the one that everybody's up in arms
the ridiculous? About? So okay,
probably ridiculous. Okay, let's say what it is first.
So it's new. So there's an idea in the, and this is an idea that will be in the first episode, because it's Chibnall saying something big,
yeah,
and it's going to be, let me get this right, that it's going to be revealed that there was a whole generation cycle before the William Hartnell Doctor, and the series will somehow, or the Doctor will somehow come full circle. And then
I think that was a joke that somebody made.
Oh, okay.
No, that was a joke that Simon made.
Right.
He said that Jodie Whittaker's going to regenerate into William Hartnell, forming a closed loop, and end the series. That was just a joke. No, the rumor is just that there's going to be a whole regeneration cycle of 13 female doctors before the William Hartnell Doctor.
The reason,
although it would be 12.
Yeah. The reason I'm skeptical about this is that that's not going to form a backbone of the story, because that's not Chibnall style. So it would be a sort of a
throwaway reference.
Russell T Davies throwaway line.
Like 507 regenerations.
There's no way.
Sarah Jane Adventures.
And there's no way that a throwaway line will have entered into the rumor. If it was a whole sort of setting or a story or an actor, but a throwaway line, I'm very skeptical that it would somehow end up on.
It could be that somebody who worked on the programme, who's a real big long-term fan, saw a line saying, I've got 507 regenerations, why would I ever need to die?
Yeah.
And was so pissed off that went away against established continuity that he told his mate, I'm really pissed off about this because it goes against established continuity, and so it makes its way out onto the internet. Okay. So it could be that it's come along like that.
But then it would be the equivalent of that Russell T Davies Sarah Jane Adventures line, in which case you just ignore it and that
was my impression.
It's not the death of Doctor Who.
Mind you, somebody said that they can't do that because it doesn't fit in with the established continuity because it has been set. Oh, do you want to? Shall I finish what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody said, but it's established on screen that William Hartnell is the first Doctor, unquote, the earliest Doctor, unquote. To which I said, well, the Doctor's not the given name, so presumably
Yeah.
he doesn't adopt that name until he leaves Gallifrey, and in fact he adopts it in an earthly child, because we see the scene where he adopts it, which means that you could perfectly easily have 12 versions of that character from before who don't have that name, and that still makes William Hartnell the first Doctor.
Yes. So Dylan Reese says the previous regeneration cycle will be one of those throwaway lines, like the Sarah Jane Adventures line where Matt Smith said he can regenerate 607 times.
Or whatever,
which is exactly what we just said, which is good.
Yeah.
And Miles North Scott just wants to clarify. So
I clicked on the link.
I wasn't actually going to say what he was clarifying, but I clicked on the link and started watching. It turned out it was watching the last episode, which is why some of my comments make no sense. Oh, okay. He's clarifying why he sounded drunk at the beginning, because he was commenting on something we were talking about.
I know,
3 months ago. That's fine.
Okay, so
technology is not for everyone.
But if there is a story where it does turn out there's a new regeneration cycle from before, I'm perfectly happy with that, as long as it makes sense and the story's worthwhile.
Yeah.
Because it's always the way. Continuity is there to be added to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if somebody wants to add to the continuity, as long as there's a worthwhile reason for doing it, why the hell not?
You'd imagine that if that. What did he say? Smiles say?
No, I was just looking at the time. We've been going for 45 minutes nearly.
Oh, excellent.
I don't think we're doing the episode we set out to do, so this will just be the episode.
If it is about regeneration cycles being before William Hartnell, that's unlikely to happen this series either, because that sounds like the sort of storyline you'll have
build
during a build up to a regeneration because it's a story about regeneration.
Yeah. So it doesn't look likely, but nevertheless, it's a rumor. It's out there. So if it does turn out to be true, well, bring it on, as long as there's a worthwhile reason for doing it. Yeah. Okay, a couple of other things we can talk about. We know we've seen this. They're calling it the Nazi Dalek, the black Dalek that we've seen in photographs from Bristol.
Okay.
Most people, I think, listening to this will have seen these photographs of a black Dalek in Bristol, which is slightly slimmer, slightly taller, basically in colours that replicate Nazi uniforms from Nazi period Germany.
Subtle.
Yeah, not very subtle at all. In fact, it's even reshaped to slightly resemble the peaked cap and so on.
Okay.
So, but that filming looks like that was for a special that would go out next holiday season.
Okay.
So that'll be Christmas or New Year at the end of 2020.
Right.
So I just wanted to bring that in for the sake of completion.
So it's possible that they've already filmed the Christmas special for
2020
next year.
Yes, they have.
They have.
Oh, that's definite.
That must be the furthest in advance it's ever been done.
Yeah, people have said, well, why would they do that? But there's a very obvious reason why they do that. Chris Chibnall now has also confirmed he's staying around for Series 13, which presumably, although I don't think anybody's actually said it out loud, means that Jodie Whittaker is too. But if she's doing a third year, it doesn't necessarily stand to reason, but you would expect that would be with new companions.
Okay.
Which means that Graham, Yaz, Ryan will be leaving at the end of this block of episodes.
Yeah.
And if they're recording 11 episodes at a time, so hang on. So Series 11 followed by a New Year's episode in 2019. Then Series 12 is starting on New Year's Day, so you're not getting a special before it. So as part of the 11 episodes, they record the special that goes out after it.
So they're actually one episode in advance. So we haven't missed an episode somewhere.
No, but they're doing it next. Well, if you want to look at it that way, we've sort of missed an episode, a seasonal special this year.
Yes, yeah.
So we kind of lost an episode.
No, I'm not uncomfortable. I'm not going to go even in the vein on it.
Well,
but I'm just trying to work out.
It's neither here nor there, really. The important thing is the reason why they're recording it in advance is presumably because that'll be the last episode with Graham, Ryan, and Yaz, and it makes sense to record it while they're recording other episodes with Graham, Ryan, and Yaz. Plus, if they're doing them in blocks of 11 at a time, they're doing it now rather than waiting to do it at the start of the next time they record.
Shall I whiz through some of these comments? Miles Northcott claims he might be drunk anyway. He says it looks like you've got a flower in your hair, which is fine. Dylan Reese, sensible Dylan Reese. Do you think that the reason 2020 Xmas special has been filmed already is because Jodie is done?
No, it's because they're blocking them 11 at a time. So that means this series of 10 plus the special afterwards. And if the companions are leaving at the end of this block 11, that means they won't have to get the 3 actors playing the companions together this time next year to film something that's going out then. If they're already together now, it makes sense to just do it now.
Okay, and that's Dylan then makes a similar comment, I think, next. He's also saying that Chris Noth is back for an episode. Is that a rumor or is that an actual?
I've not heard that, but there is one rumor that somebody told me about but refused to say the name, and that could be the name.
Okay.
They're saying they don't want the name to get out because that would spoil the surprise.
Okay.
So I guess the surprise, if that is the surprise, has just been spoiled.
Okay.
So I guess that also makes a certain amount of sense.
I guess so. I mean, he was not.
I wouldn't have expected.
I wouldn't have brought any characters from the last series back. I mean, imagine the villain from Rosa coming back. You just
potentially any of the villains from that series could come back.
Could.
I would suggest that there may be a reason to bring some of the villains from that series back, and that would be the Master.
Right.
How about? And I think this is a silly idea, but I think you could do this idea and you could do it well. But how about the Master is growing up, is an adolescent, realizes as he's developing, his memories of what he was before start to come back.
Right.
And he realizes who the Doctor is and what the Doctor does, and knows that the best way to get at the Doctor is to haunt her with villains from her past. And so goes around collecting these people.
Collecting the really underwhelming villains from the last series.
But they're the ones from this regeneration.
Yeah, I know. I can. Yeah.
It's like I said, it's a silly idea, but
Yeah,
you could do it and make it make sense.
I can see the kind of the production idea, the creative idea.
And also, if it's an adolescent Master, you wouldn't
Yeah.
expect it to add up because A, adolescence, and B, the
Yeah.
Master's mad anyway.
Okay.
So you would expect a silly idea.
Do you mean the Pating could come back?
Yeah, potentially. But I was thinking more of the characters who are around on Earth, because those would be the ones that you'd round up, wouldn't they?
Oh, apparently Chris Noth coming back isn't entirely a rumour. Or it is a rumour, but it's sort of been confirmed by inside people. So you've heard it here.
Okay. Oh, I hadn't heard it. Well, I'd heard it, but I hadn't heard which name it was.
Yeah.
So that does make sense.
Which means a bit more Trump.
Yeah.
Trumpiness.
But then you kind of expect some of the things to carry through from last year. Not necessarily the characters, but some of the themes.
Yeah.
And so if they are going to carry the themes through, then one of the characters, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
In the same way as Tim Shaw turned up in the last episode last year.
Yes.
Not because he was a great returning villain, but because they wanted to go back to a theme from that first episode. So it made sense to bring back the character in order to revisit the theme.
Yeah.
So I guess if you want to revisit the theme from the Chris Noth episode from last year, bring Chris Noth back so you can revisit the character along with the theme.
Sure.
And also, maybe that then makes sense of one of the big complaints that they let Chris Noth get away with it. When I thought the point was kind of that they were letting him get away with it because that's what life is like.
Okay.
And also, I don't think the character didn't learn something from that. And so maybe we'll see a slightly different version of the character if he does turn up when he does turn up in series 12.
Right.
I want to talk about what day it's going to be on.
Okay.
A little bit.
Of the week?
Yes, what day of the week?
Okay.
We've got two conflicting things.
Yeah.
One is a story in the Mirror, which says it's going to be back on New Year's Day, which at that point had already been established. And then there's a quote from an insider who says episode 1 will be on New Year's Day, and then it is expected to run on Saturdays after that.
Okay.
Well, expected's a bit loose and flimsy.
What day is New Year's Day?
It's a Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
In New Zealand,
Yes.
an advertiser's schedule.
I thought you were going to say in New Zealand, New Year's Day is a Saturday.
In New Zealand, an
Yeah.
advertiser's schedule
Okay.
got leaked,
Right.
which means that they've got 3 months television in advance for the advertisers to buy slots in.
Okay.
So the whole plan for those 3 months is part of this PDF or whatever it is.
Right.
So the advertisers can see exactly when what is going to be on.
Yeah.
And New Zealand have got episode 1 going out on the 2nd of January, which makes
Okay.
sense. They're 13 hours ahead of us, so
Yeah.
it would have to go out the following day.
Yeah.
And then episode 2 going out on the 10th of January, which is a Friday.
Right. Okay.
Now, New Zealand moved series 11 to Fridays.
Right.
Prior to that, they'd always shown Doctor Who on a Sunday night.
Okay.
But because it was in the UK on a Sunday night, they couldn't show it on Sunday night, so
Right.
they had to move it.
Right.
Monday night in New Zealand, and I can't remember what the program is. I think it's something political. But there's programming that they couldn't move on a Monday,
Okay.
which meant they had to put it somewhere else in the week.
Right.
So in the end, they decided on Friday so that it would still be at the weekend. But Doctor Who debuts on that television service's streaming service
Right.
just after the UK broadcast.
Okay.
So people can still watch it in New Zealand from essentially the Monday morning.
Right.
Which suggests, if that schedule is correct, that Doctor Who's staying on Sundays.
Okay.
Because otherwise, why wouldn't they just bring Doctor Who back up to Sunday night if it's going to be on Saturdays in the UK?
Right.
And the thing is, if people are looking forward to something, they're going to basically watch it at the first available opportunity, right?
Okay.
You don't wait 12 months for Doctor Who to come back and then wait a week. When it becomes available on the streaming service, you watch it.
Mm.
And for most people, that will mean you watch it in the evening after it appears on the streaming service, because I guess most people will be doing things in the daytime.
Okay.
I'm generalizing. I don't mean everybody's going to be doing stuff in the daytime. A lot of people, if it turns up on a Sunday morning, will watch it on a Sunday morning. But I would guess the majority would probably watch it in the evening, the first available evening.
Yeah.
So all these people who are buying advertising slots for Doctor Who on a Friday
Yeah.
are not going to be happy if Doctor Who's moved back to a Saturday, and they could have bought advertising slots on a Sunday when a lot more people are going to be watching it on broadcast rather than on the streaming service.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, because some people are saying, well, A, maybe they've got the schedule wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe they were just hedging their bets, whatever. Or maybe they have decided to keep it on a Friday, despite the fact that in the UK it's going back to Saturdays. And I'm saying, A, there's a lot of money involved in advertising. You don't put out ad hoc schedules that mean nothing to attract advertising dollars. You get the facts as straight as you can. And the BBC knows this, and they have deals with all these people. They're not going to give them vague dates. They're going to give them the actual dates, surely.
Okay.
And if New Zealand know it's going to be broadcast in the UK on a Saturday, then surely they would schedule it on the Sunday night to keep the advertisers happy. So I'm saying, I believe logically that New Zealand's schedule still points towards a Sunday evening broadcast in the UK, despite what the Mirror says about an insider saying he's expecting it to move back to Saturdays.
Okay. Shall I
But
say Dylan Reese?
a lot of people seem to think it's coming back to Saturdays, and okay, I'm happy to be proved wrong, and it makes it a lot easier for us to podcast if I'm proved wrong. I still think we're looking at something.
Dylan Reese says, I am the insider, and it's definitely Saturday. Oh, no, sorry, he doesn't. He says, Chibnall's back for season 13, exclamation mark.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the Netflix reboot starring Tom Hardy that I was promised? Oh, Tom Hardy would be good.
2024.
Oh, Tom Hardy would be really good. Have you ever seen Peaky Blinders?
I know.
It is good. It is.
Mm.
But Tom Hardy plays a Jewish gangster. And he's so...
Does he?
Yeah, he's so outrageous in that.
Okay.
He is, yeah.
I like him. I can't see him as a Jewish gangster.
He's really charismatic. He's a really charismatic actor, I think.
Yeah.
Quite adaptable. I mean, he's never going to be sort of... He's always going to be slightly sort of...
Handsome.
Rough and tumble, I was going to say.
Were you going to?
Slightly
Rough and
threatening.
tumble
He's
handsome,
threatening.
yeah.
He's got a sort of threatening, like Brando. He's got that kind of... You wouldn't see Brando in a serious romantic comedy.
Oh, not in a romantic comedy. Brandon did a lot of romantic stuff
Yeah,
back in the early
yeah,
part of his
yeah.
career.
but always threatening romantic. I mean, you know, where he's sort of
yeah,
on the edge of violence.
yeah.
But yes.
Oh, we've got a new quote from somebody new.
No, we haven't. Oh, yes, we have. JW. Sunday nights have changed recently, what with Dark Materials and War of the Worlds, so it should slot in nicely.
That's what I thought.
So War of the Worlds and his Dark Materials presumably are following the Doctor Who.
Well, his Dark
The
Materials is
trend.
essentially in the Doctor Who slot, more or less, give or take.
Yeah.
And that finishes just before Christmas, so it makes sense for Doctor Who to slot in there just after Christmas.
Yeah.
War of the Worlds is in the 9 o'clock slot, and that's following from the thing that was just on that was in the 9 o'clock slot.
Right.
And they've also said that following War of the Worlds in the 9 o'clock slot is going to be the BBC broadcast of Good Omens.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
Good Omens will follow War of the Worlds at 9 o'clock on.
So it's a bit of a telefantasy.
It's a bit of a telefantasy drama evening, and Doctor Who slots right in.
So Miles Northcott, has Sunday night become more fantasy based though because of season 11?
It's possible. It got masses of viewers, and even the live viewers plus the delayed viewers for Sunday nights were definitely higher than what you would expect for Antiques Roadshow in that slot. Maybe not as high as you'd get for Strictly in that slot, but Strictly is a law unto itself. So I think Doctor Who definitely, I mean, people might look at those figures and push them this way and that and say they were not great figures, but telly figures are falling all across the board.
Yeah.
And I think Doctor Who pushed back against that on Sunday nights. And yeah, maybe that was part of the reason why Sunday nights is suddenly telefantasy at the moment. You have to also throw Christmas into that equation. There's a lot of telefantasy on at the moment, but then the nights are drawing in and people are looking forward towards Christmas. And there's always been a tradition of telefantasy and Christmas going hand in hand.
Yeah.
Or fantasy films, but you know, going back to what's the thing that everybody always watches, the 6-part thing with Patrick Troughton.
Box of Delights.
Box of Delights.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
Box of Delights is precisely the kind of thing that you can imagine at sort of 7 o'clock on a Sunday night in late November and early December or whatever.
Potentially now, yeah. I guess
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
When it was on, it was.
Mark my words, next Christmas it'll be a remake of Box of Delights.
They could do, they could do worse than remake Box of Delights. I mean, it's kind of a rubbish story, but
given his Dark Materials effects and budget, Box of Delights remade with a quality cast these days could be excellent.
I'd imagine it might have to wait until his Dark Materials because presumably there's another 2 seasons at least.
Depending how this one does.
I think they've gone for a 2nd season already.
Have they? The viewing figures were good. They have tailed off a bit. It lost something like 25% across the first fortnight.
Yeah.
But then you would kind of expect that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that is probably considered a success. Probably a good success. Yeah.
Dylan Reese says series 11 viewing figures were the best Doctor Who has had in years.
Yes, they were.
And Miles Northcott says, bring back the ghosts of Motley Hall, which they kind of have in that sitcom that Simon likes, called the Horrible Histories made one. A sitcom about a couple that move into a house that's haunted by, I mean, it's basically a remake of the ghosts of Motley Hall.
Okay, I think we've gone through everything I had written down.
It's called Ghosts, according to Miles Northcott.
Oh, well, there you go.
So have we gone through everything?
I think we've gone through everything I had written down, unless there's anything else you want to bring up.
I don't think so. I mean, I think I wasn't unpositive about the next series because I'm always positive because it changes each time. So I'm always optimistic.
And even if it's a mild disappointment, that still means it's well worth watching.
Yeah. But the trailer has sort of reassured me in certain areas. And it's a proper trailer as well, which is quite exciting. At last, we're getting something material from the series, which I don't mind not. Well,
last year,
not hearing anything, but
last time they had a different kind of trailer because they were trailing for a different kind of audience. Like I said at the start, they were looking to attract new people to Doctor Who on the assumption the old people would stay. And also they were introducing a new Doctor and a new style.
Mhm.
So they went for a different thing. And as Chris Chibnall has said, Doctor Who was Series 11 was about introducing people to Doctor Who. Series 12 is about pulling the lid off and showing them what's inside, what's really inside. So you go back to a standard style of trailer for hopefully a fairly standard style of series. But the great thing about it is it's a standard. If it's a standard style of series, it's a standard style of series that's being steered by somebody who's not steered a standard style of series before. So we get to see a new standard for Doctor Who.
So what you're saying is next series we're going to see the Doctor on Gallifrey visiting her mum, her dad.
Maybe so.
The Master's going to turn out to be Susan. That sort of thing. Miles Northcott, it isn't just a trailer, it's the comments from some of the cast, which implies that it has more oomph and is possibly darker than Series 11. Yeah.
Well, everything just kind of points towards it going back to be more the kind of natural Doctor Who that we used to.
I'd just be happy with oomph.
Yeah.
Just a bit of oomph.
Okay, before we go then, 3 more things. The first of which is Logan's look. And for anybody who doesn't know, Logan is a 9-year-old from the Antipodes who is watching all the way through Doctor Who in order with his dad.
Yeah.
And I have inveigled them into sending us Logan's comments on the stories as he goes.
Okay.
And here is the first half of Series 3. Smith and Jones. This story was good, and I like Martha. It was very weird at first how the hospital was moved to the moon. I liked the Jadoon. You're going to be happy, Logan. You're going to be very happy, because at least they weren't as murderous as some other monsters. It was very confusing why the Jadoon took the hospital to the moon. Politics, dear boy, politics. And it was very weird that the slabs were only made out of leather. It was good how the Doctor went back in time to prove to Martha that he could travel in time. Score 74 out of 100.
Okay.
The Shakespeare Code.
So not quite as good as Time Nash or whatever. Or K9. No, K9. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
The Shakespeare Code.
Yes.
I don't know what I think about this episode. It was all right, but confusing with all the spells in it. Martha thought at the beginning that it was like Harry Potter, but I don't know much about Harry Potter. There are a lot of Doctor Who stories set in a year ending in 99, like the 8th Doctor story. Shakespeare was good, but I found The Witches confusing as I don't watch shows that involve magic. I thought the way the story ended with the Witches being defeated was very confusing, and I don't know why Queen Elizabeth was angry at the Doctor. Nevertheless, score 75 out of 100,
Okay.
giving it 1 more than Smith and Jones.
Okay.
Hey, he's 9. He can do what he likes.
Yeah.
Gridlock. I don't know what I think of this story. I didn't understand at the beginning why Martha was carjacked, and I was very confused why the cars were so slow. The macro were good, but they didn't do much in the story apart from attack cars. Score 77 out of 100.
Okay. I mean, apart from the scores, Logan's getting quite cynical. He's growing up as a Doctor Who fan. He's getting cynical. It's not as good as it used to be. Would be the next comment.
Yeah. Daleks in Manhattan, Evolution of the Daleks. This story was very confusing, but I enjoyed it. There was a lot going on in the second episode, such as mixing all the formulas and potions before the Daleks took charge from the human Dalek. The pig slaves looked very weird, and whenever the show tries to do a monster, it always seems to be a pig for some reason.
Okay.
Dalek Sect looked very weird at first, and I did not expect that it would try and change and become non-Dalek-like. Nevertheless, score 84 out of 100. Yeah. The Lazarus Experiment. This story was good, but it was very confusing with everything that was going on. I didn't expect Professor Lazarus to turn into a monster, which was very weird. I didn't understand how Professor Lazarus's experiment worked. Score 74 out of 100.
He seems a bit thrown by the increase in pace in the new series.
Something about Series 3 here that he's not quite getting to grips with.
But
But he
enjoying.
really liked all the ones before, so it's
He's liking these. He's just not
Mm.
understanding them.
We like Daleks in Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks most by some
We've
degree.
got the next one's what, 42, then Blink, then it's that run that I really like. Most people really like.
It is. What's the one after the Lazarus Experiment? Is 42.
and
Human Nature, Blink,
Yes, yeah.
Utopia,
Yeah.
Time Lords.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got a good run coming ahead of him. There's one thing we need to talk about in terms of our feed, our podcast feed.
Okay.
So I'm going to be rather brief, but
Okay.
in January, well, unless all of these things are wrong, we're going to be reviewing Doctor Who. If it's on a Saturday, I'll be doing what I'm doing now. We'll record it on a Saturday night. I'll put it out at midnight. If it's on a Sunday, we'll just record it when we get a chance to, and we'll put it out when I can. So our feed is not going to be as regular during January and February as it has been.
But we'll take Imodium, so we'll be fine.
Well, unless it's on Saturdays, in which case it'll be very regular midnight on a Saturday night, because just that's when it is. But because we'll be doing all of those things, that means that everything else on the feed is going to take a rest for 2 months.
You have to wait for the Pasolini episode.
Yeah. So Film Club and Film Club International, after their December episodes, will return in March. Desert Planet Picks will not necessarily entirely rest, because that's the one thing we do or the one thing I do, where we don't have to get together to do it. And obviously, if we're getting together to do the Doctor Who episodes. So it may be that there's one Desert Planet Picks, possibly 2 across those months. Who knows? It's possible there'll be a few Desert Planet Picks, but not many. And there won't be any Film Club or Film Club International. Those will return in March. I mean, things may change, but that's how it looks at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one very, very last thing. Somebody has sent us a book review in audio form. So we're going to say goodnight and leave you in the capable hands of John Hole. That's who you'll be hearing after the music. Until then, I was JR.
I was Matt.
And we'll speak again soon.
Bye.
That. Goodbye, people watching. Oh, shall we? Is there anything else?
Miles says, I bet Lee doesn't know the word inveigled. It's possible. Logan has spotted RTD's animal agenda. Yeah. Cats, rhinos,
Pigs,
spiders,
spiders,
and
so.
Dylan Reese. Oh, thanks, Dylan.
Ah,
There we go. So we can go now. I'm now
Okay.
going to turn off the live stream. That was fun.
thanks,
Thank you.
Dylan.
Bye.
Good night.